So very welcome to you all this afternoon for this webinar on the EU Golden Visa system and obviously passports for Portugal. My name is Rob Hodson. I'm one of the senior consultants here. And my colleague Pablo Ostrich, who's the general manager, will be talking you through all of the details of the program. We should be about 30 minutes. If you have any questions, please add them into the Q&A tab at the bottom, and we'll do our best to answer them all. But we will follow up with you individually after today's webinar and touch base with you then. But over to my colleague Pablo. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Rob, for the introduction. Welcome, everyone. I believe most people are here in the Middle East, where Rob and I are based, but a lot of times we do these webinars for people all over the world, as the Portuguese Golden Visa has a worldwide audience. We planned to do this webinar this week before the news came out about the Prime Minister considering ending the Golden Visa program. So the timing of our webinar is couldn't be better, and hence the title of it being now or never. So I'm just going to talk probably for around 20 minutes and explain who we are at Holborn Assets and Holborn Pass. Then I'll go through what's looking likely to happen this year when it comes to the Portuguese Golden Visa program closing. I'll then explain the process, the benefits, everything about the Portuguese Golden Visa, the costs, and then the real estate options, and then we'll open the floor to Q&A. You've got the chat button and the Q&A button, so if you can just type in your questions as you go, and we'll make sure we answer them in about 20 minutes. Okay, so just as a quick introduction, Holborn Assets, we're a global wealth management company, in case you don't know who we are. We've been based here in the Middle East since 1998, but we have offices worldwide. We have an office in Portugal, in Spain, in the UK, and all over Europe, all over Africa, all over Asia, and even in the US. We manage over $2 billion of our clients' money, and we have over 20,000 very happy clients, as you can see from our reviews on Trustpilot online. Holborn Pass is our citizenship and residency by investment division, which is part of the Holborn Assets umbrella. And we focus on investments that give you either citizenship or residency. And there's about 18 different government programs that we work with, but we're mainly focused on Portugal, as that is, where we get the most interest, and in my opinion, is by far the best program that's available out there. Just last year, we did over 10% of the Portuguese Golden Visa market, so we're a big player when it comes to the Portuguese Golden Visa. And the reason we do so well is because we have exclusive properties, usually at the discounted level, which only we can sell worldwide, which are usually their best in category. And today I'll be showing you two of those towards the end of the presentation. Our clients work with us, and we centralize everything. We're one point of contact for what's quite a complicated process. We work with the lawyers, the government, the banks, the accountants, and the developer, all on the client's behalf, and make the process as easy and as simple as it can be. So the Portuguese Golden Visa program, when is it going to end? So last week at the Lisbon Web Summit, the Portugal Prime Minister, Mr. Antonio Costa, said to journalists that he is considering scrapping the Golden Visa program, as it has fulfilled its original goal, which is to help with the deficits, unemployment, and bring wealth into Portugal. Now, that was in 2012. Portugal now does have, pretty much full employment, and it's one of the fastest growing economies in the EU, with a lot of tech and a lot of startups focusing in Lisbon primarily, but also all over Portugal. Now, this tends to happen a lot with government programs. They come and they go. Unfortunately, the Prime Minister didn't give a deadline, or there is no law in place in terms of when the Golden Visa program is going to end. We can only imagine that it will be at some point next year. And it's important to understand that this happens a lot in Golden Visa programs, in citizenship programs. Governments just decide to close programs, or they decide to increase the amount. So just this year, for example, the UK closed their investor visa program in February. Cyprus closed their program about 3 years ago. The US decided to increase their minimum investment amount from $500,000 to $800,000. Turkey increased from 250 to 400,000. Greece increased it from 250 to $500,000. And it's been very much in the news. You can see all these articles which are from this year with the EU wanting to ban golden visas or golden residencies across Europe. So it's quite common for these programs to to come to an end. Hopefully there will be some that will start in maybe some other countries, but for now all we can do is base our predictions and advise our clients on what the Portuguese government usually does. So, for example, in 2021, the law actually changed in Portugal, and the government changed what qualified for Golden Visa, okay? And essentially they banned residential property from qualifying for Golden Visa, and they did a price hike across a few different categories. Now, the government at that time gave a 6-month deadline for people to adapt, to apply, and until the program would change. And then it ended up extending it by another 6 months. Okay. So what happened was there was a huge race to submit the files before the deadline, before, say, June 30th in 2021, and then they extended it, and then it was till December 31st, 2021. And then after that, in January, then you could no longer invest under the previous program. You had to invest under the current qualifying requirements. So the race is to submit the application before the deadline. Okay. On average, you need about 4 months from start until you can submit your application, which means that if the deadline was in June next year, which is probable, then the deadline to get started with an application should be February 2023. Again, this is assuming no delays. Delays can happen. Embassies can be slow. So we encourage investors to start as soon as possible if this is the right program for them. The other scenario that we're contemplating is that the Golden Visa could end at the end of 2023, which would then give us a deadline more along July. But again, we don't know this, and we definitely would prefer to err on the side of caution and get started as soon as possible to make sure that our clients aren't left behind with the opportunity to get a European passport without living in Portugal, right? Because that is the main benefit. So that's just a little commentary in terms of what happened last week, and what the deadlines are, and what people should take into account when applying for the Portuguese Golden Visa. Okay, so this country index comparison sheet that we have compares the different programs that we work with, which are the main government programs in the world. So on the left, we've got the passport programs, where you've got around 9 different countries that offer their passport for investment. And you can typically get this passport in, say, 4 to 6 months in these different countries. The Caribbean are very good for a travel document. That's the main purpose of the Caribbean countries. And Malta is the only EU country that offers their passport for sale. But say, when you take all costs into account, it requires a €1 million donation, meaning there's no investment. You don't get any of that money back. Montenegro and Turkey, they're not part of the EU, hence why the price is lower. Why is the Maltese price so high? The reason is that once you have that EU passport, it's not just Malta, it's 27 countries where you can live, where you can work, where you can study, where you can retire to, where your children can go to university, where they can get a job. So that is why the EU passport is so valuable. Okay, besides then being able to travel to 185 countries visa-free, and it's currently the 4th best passport in the world, the Portuguese ones. So one route is to go via Malta. The other route is to go via one of the residency programs to get a developed country passport, let's say, and first you get the Golden Visa, the residency, which typically lets you live and work in that particular country, and then that usually takes about a year to get the residency, and then that residency can become a citizenship. You see here, this first row here, where it says time to citizenship after 5 to 10 years, if certain conditions are met. Usually the conditions, as you can see in this row here, physical stay time for citizenship, are that you live there 6 months per year, i.e. you're a tax resident for 5 to 10 years to be able to get that citizenship. What's truly unique about Portugal is that you don't need to go and live in Portugal. You can spend as little as 5 weeks total in that 5-year period and still be able to qualify for the citizenship as long as you bought a property or an investment that qualifies for the Golden Visa between 280 to €500,000, and you have a basic level of Portuguese. Okay, it's not intermediate, it's not advanced, it's basic. Those are pretty much the two conditions to get the citizenship. You visit for 5 weeks and you have a basic level of Portuguese. And that's why the Portuguese program is so unique, because no other developed country offers their citizenship remotely. Okay, so I'll just go through this, and in terms of, I'll just quickly explain the Portuguese program, and then we'll move on to the benefits, the real estate and costs. So if you've never been to Portugal, Portugal is voted as the most welcoming country for expats in the world, as per Internations. Over 70% of the population speak English, and it has one of the lowest crime rates in the world, and is voted as the 3rd most peaceful country in the Global Peace Index. 3 years in a row, it's been voted the world's best retirement destination, as it has a number of factors: lowest cost of living in Western Europe, overall, good weather, good food. It has 300 to 330 sunny days per year in the south of Portugal, and it offers free healthcare and education for all citizens and residents. And with the healthcare, you can be treated for anything, for cancer, for heart attack, you name it. Additionally, Portugal has a 10-year tax regime exemption, whereby people who move to Portugal for the first time can benefit for 10 years of not paying taxes or very little tax on their worldwide income. For example, if you have a pension, that type of income. The Portuguese program has been going since 2012, so it's a very trusted program, and it's, I think now 11,000 families have already been approved for the Golden Visa, and over 30,000 people actually have their Golden Visas. People started getting their passports without having to live in Portugal in 2018, and as long as you don't have a criminal record and you're not an EU citizen, you can apply and get your Golden Visa for yourself, your spouse, your parents, your spouse's parents, and your kids. Now, the process takes about 12 months until we can get your Golden Visa. Well, that's the expected timeline. Obviously, it varies depending on government delays. But for anyone applying now, we would hope it would take about 12 months until they get their Golden Visa. And we assist all throughout the way. And I was saying earlier, we need to be where it says CEF online submission. We need to have applied to the government by this point in step 4, which is usually month 4, and we need to get all these different bits and pieces done before we can apply to the government. Hence, if the deadline is June, we should start latest in February, ideally January or December. So we do everything remotely, we buy the property remotely, we apply for the Golden Visa. Once the file is approved, the client has to go to Portugal to do the biometrics, fingerprints, photographs, takes about half a day. Our lawyers accompany client to do it, and the lawyers pay the Golden Visa card fee, and then the Golden Visa cards are issued and the 5 years start counting to the citizenship. So once we get the Golden Visa cards issued in year 1, they're valid for 2 years. So at the end of year 2 and at the end of year 4, the investor and his family should go to Portugal and spend 2 weeks at the end of year 2, for example, 3 weeks at the end of year 4, renew their Golden Visas, and then at the end of year 5, apply for the citizenship and make sure they have the A2 language level and the 5-week physical stay, so that the Golden Visa is granted, the passport is granted towards the end of year 6. So immediately, once the client has the Golden Visa, they could go and live and work in Portugal. They'll never have to get a Schengen visa ever again. And they can open up a business all over Europe, benefit from the 10-year discount in taxes, and access the healthcare, education, and pension in Portugal. Now, once the 5 years have gone by, this is when the investor would request the citizenship to the government. And as long as they meet the two conditions that we've explained earlier, so the 5-week holiday to Portugal, the basic level of Portuguese, normally we recommend online teachers that can help clients get this done in a few months. And at that point, they'll have the 4th best passport in the world that lets you travel to anywhere in green, visa-free, and anywhere in blue is where they could live, work, study, retire, etc. Okay, so there's different qualifying investments for the Golden Visa. I'll cover the real estate in the next slide, but just to cover the other ones, you can donate 250,000 euros. It doesn't expedite anything. It's just another way to get the Golden Visa done. You can invest in a private equity fund for a minimum of €500,000 euros, but it's not that popular because it's usually a 10-year exit strategy. And, the funds haven't been going for that long, so they're typically, largely untested. You can block 1.5 million euros in a bank account for 5 to 6 years. However, most people would rather block 280 in a property as opposed to that. And then finally, you could start a company with 10 employees, but you have to pay salaries for 6 years and the minimum wage at 1,000 euros. So it's close to a 600,000 euro commitment over 5-6 years. So most of our clients tend to go for the real estate. And we mentioned earlier that the law changed at the start of 2022. And what happened was that they banned residential property from qualifying in Lisbon, in Porto, and in the Algarve, which is a touristic area. So the prime locations, they were banned from residential. So now you could only do residential in the, outland, rural areas, which normally aren't a very good investment. We look at citizenship and residency from the investment point of view first, as a wealth management company that we are. So it really doesn't make sense to do any residential properties anymore. So we're just focused on commercial in the main cities, in Lisbon, in Porto, and in Algarve. Now, what is commercial? Offices, retail, hotels, and apartment hotels. And apartment hotels is pretty much what most of our clients want to do, as it's the closest thing to residential, serviced apartments, touristic apartments, apartment hotels, that all qualifies as commercial. And, clients can own a property, rent it out, and, and maybe sell it on the open market at an upside. So there's different property category minimums. There's pretty much 2 categories, which is either new build commercial, let's say, in Lisbon and Porto, the minimum is 500,000. And then the Algarve has a 20% discount. So the minimum in the south of Portugal would be 400,000 euros. The other property category is if you refurbish a building that's 30 years or older, and then the price drops from 500,000 to 350. And in the Algarve, another 20% down to 280,000 euros. Now, this category, how it usually works is that developers will find an old building, sell it to Golden Visa investors at 280. Included in the price is the refurbishment. So say 20,000 euros as part of that 280. They'll then refurbish the property over the next 2 years, rent it out to tourists, typically in a hotel. And then in year 6, they will normally offer some sort of buyback, whereby the investor would get their 280,000 euros back from the developer when they get their passport. So it's pretty much a Golden Visa product, designed purely for the Golden Visa. And when you get the passport, you get your money back. So we have options across all categories. Today, we don't have time to go through all of them, but I'm going to go through our best 2, one at the 500,000 euro category and one at the 280,000 euro level. Now, as you go down in the price, normally the investment is also, not as good, right? Because you're investing in a 30-year-old building that has to be refurbished. So a lot of times there's no rental return, as opposed to in the higher category where you invest more money, you can also naturally make a good investment. So the 2 projects that we have, the first one is called the Royal Obidos, which is a 5-star resort located 45 minutes north of Lisbon. And it's fully operational, started in 2001. And you've got the 5-star hotel here, and then the apartment hotels which are studios and 1-bedrooms, which you can just see there. Now, we sold out pretty much of the studios last year when the minimum entry level was, you know, we could do it at 350,000 euros. There's, I think, around 8 studios left, and I believe there's around 30 1-bedrooms left out of 64 in which still qualify at the 500,000. So all the apartments face the golf course, and then they also face the sea. They all have a sea view. And what's very attractive about this project is that the investor gets a rental of 7% for 5 years. So 35% gross rental paid upfront, even before the investor buys the property. So how does that work? So 35%, you know, after tax, I think becomes around 25%. So investors actually receive 25% net once taxes have been paid, which means that to buy a €500,000 1-bed, which is 88 square meters, and the price per square meter, I think, is 4,500, which is very, very good. So clients only need 368,000 euros of their money to buy a €500,000 apartment, because the 131,000 euro rental, so this rental for the 5 years, is paid upfront. So the rental return becomes part of the purchase price of €500,000, meaning that our clients are able to lower down their investment by a substantial amount and make money with the Golden Visa, which is very tough to do, as I'll show you now in the quotations, because there's typically a lot of costs. The investor and his family can stay in the 5-star luxury hotel and spa for 6 weeks per year for free. They can also give it to friends to stay there. And it's a very touristic area. There's around, 4 different, world-class golf courses. This is where the Open de Portugal is played. The golf tournament for Portugal is played in that golf course. So people come there all year. And then there's a Marriott, there's a Bon Sucesso resort, there's a lot of other 5-star resorts in the area. And finally, the developer offers an optional buyback to investors, meaning that the investor can choose in year 4 if they want to opt for the buyback in year 6 and force the developer, if you like, or as per the agreement, to buy the property back at the €500,000 level 6 years after they invested. Okay, the investor can choose not to do that, and then they can sell it on the open market and make the upside as well. Okay. All right, so that's just a quick intro to the Obidos resort. Here there's a few pictures of it, of what the villas look like, which contain the apartments. As you can see, they're already built, and this would be a picture of the 1-bedroom apartment with the 88 square meters. Finally, in terms of the costs, so the full cost to get the Golden Visa via the Royal Obidos project would be 423,000 euros for a single applicant. Now, since the investor owns a property for €500,000, after 12 months of starting the program, or to get the Golden Visa, the investor is actually up around 75,000 euros, which will be their profit over the next 6 years, bearing other fees that come later on. So as an investor, you have to pay the legal fees for the 12 months of work to get the Golden Visa done. You need to pay the taxes to the government when you buy any property in Portugal, which is roughly 7.3%, and then they have to pay the government 5,000 euros per card to get the Golden Visa. So because the investor receives 131,000 euros net after tax, after withholding tax in Portugal, this is why after all fees, the investor is still up 75,000 euros. And there isn't another project out there that has better financials after the first year, with rental upfront and no risk to the investor on not getting their rental, no risk to the investor the project not being built because it's already on operation. You can check it out on booking.com. It's 8.7 out of 10. All right, so that's option 1. Option 2 is the Yellow Tulip Algarve, which is in the south of Portugal. This is a 280,000 euros rehabilitation project, meaning that the investor puts in 280,000 euros, it then gets refurbished, and the property is in good condition as it is now. It's fully booked, 9-10 months of the year, but it is a building that was built in 1990, so it does need a rehabilitation refurbishment, and once that's completed, it will take it to a whole new level. What's very unique about this property is that in the 280,000 euro category, most of the projects, the investor doesn't own an apartment. They own a percentage of a building, right? They own a share of a building. Here, our investors do own an apartment, and actually they own 2 studios of 26 square meters each for the price of 280 to 295,000, depending on which way the property is facing. The investor here gets 4 out of 6 years rental or more if they choose to keep it after year 6. The first 2 years, there is no rental return because it has to be refurbished. And then after that, on average, they should expect around 3.5% over the first 4 years. And after that, around 5% is the estimated return. The investor here can also choose if they want to enforce the buyback in year 6, or if they want to keep the property and then sell it or keep it as an income generating asset for the years to come. These are pictures of what the property looks like at the moment, and these are just the pictures of the planned works and rehabilitation of the project with new tennis courts, volleyball courts, swimming pool, restaurant, pool bar, new interior pool, and then a complete redo on the inside as well. This route is the most cost-effective way to get the Golden Visa, and it's probably our most popular in terms of numbers option, because there is no cheaper way, if you like, to get the Golden Visa, but still buying a high-quality asset. The full cost would be 297,000 euros, and the rental return for 4 years, 3 of those years are paid up front in the form of taxes on behalf of the developer to the government. So effectively, it lowers down, what would be an extra 20,000 euros in cost. So what would normally cost 320,000 euros comes down to 397,000 euros that the investor has to put in to get their Golden Visa after 1 year. So I think that's everything from me. Rob, if you'd like to start the Q&A. Thanks.
Yes, we've got 2 questions so far. One is just wanting you to confirm sort of what you think the deadline will be again in terms of this changing or the process.
Yeah, well, right now it's only a prediction because the government hasn't, passed the law. So we have to wait for the government to actually pass the law, and then we will know exactly when it will be, whether it's June or whether it's December next year. So the best we can do, is hope for the best and plan for the worst, right? So planning for the worst would be deadline being June 2023, which means we should get started as latest in February to make sure you don't miss the deadline and say you buy a property and then it doesn't qualify. We're actually offering, just on that point, with the developer and ourselves, what we promise clients now is that if they start with us now, we actually include clauses in the contract that say, if there was a government change and the program closed or the property no longer qualified for Golden Visa, the investor is entitled to a full refund of their money. Okay, that's great. Kevin has asked whether he would have to give up his British passport. Right. The answer is no. So Portugal allows dual citizenship, and that's it. There's no more to it. We do have a lot of Brits, obviously since Brexit, that have started to do the Portuguese Golden Visa because they want to be able to live in Portugal or in Spain or in Italy and benefit from the good climate, and also for their kids, so they can be European as well and access all of Europe's market as well. Okay. Hilda has asked, what about the 3-year rental income up front for the Algarve property? And doesn't the investor get that straight away like the Lisbon property? No, because it's a completely different property. Even though it's the same developer, but it's a different property and different conditions. So in the Algarve one, the investor doesn't actually receive the property in the rental in his or her bank account. It gets paid to the government on behalf of the investor. So from the 6 years for the Golden Visa, 2 of them, the property is being refurbished, so there is no rental. For the remaining 4 years, 3 of them are paid upfront to the government on behalf of the investor. And then in year 6, that rental would be paid to the investor's bank account, and then year 7, year 8, year 9 as well. The one in Lisbon is different. The developer doesn't pay for the taxes on the client's behalf. The client pays for their own taxes, but then they get a higher rental of 131,000.
Okay. Mahak has asked if the dependents are over 21 years of age after the 6 years of investment, what happens then?
That's fine. So when it comes to dependents under 18, there's no issue at all. There's no extra documentation. Over 18, we need to show a police criminal certificate, and then we need to prove dependency on the main applicant. Okay. Now, dependency is proved by showing 2 pieces of paper. One, that the dependent is enrolled in a full-time academic institution, and 2, that the main applicant has paid for said academic course. So it's pretty easy to do, and we need to do this at the start, so year 0. And then once the client has the Golden Visa, we need to do it again in year 2 and in year 4. So let's say the son of the investor is 18 at the start. So we prove it then that they're enrolled in an academic education, that the father or mother has paid for the academic education. And we need to prove that again in year 2 and in year 4. After that, after they've completed the 5 years of residency, it doesn't matter if they're dependent, not dependent. They can get married after that, because that's another condition. To qualify as dependent, you're not allowed to be married, because that unqualifies you as a dependent. So we've been able to do this for, not no longer children, but kids under who are 25. We're able to start with them, because in Europe it's quite common for children to live with their parents until they're 30 or something.
Yes. Mohammed has asked, are there any other options other than investment? I think this links back to the other sort of Caribbean options maybe he was referring to.
Donation. Other than investment, yeah, I mean, there's the donation of 250,000 euros, but again, few people would want to do that because you don't get any of that back. So, I mean, there's some other visas that you can do in Portugal, like a startup visa, but then that typically, all other visas require you to go and live in Portugal if you want to get the passport. What's unique about the Golden Visa is you can do it remotely. You don't have to go live.
Okay. Mahmoud has asked if kids are born in Portugal, do they get the visa immediately or automatically, I would assume?
Yes, that is a good question. And actually what happens is, as long as the main applicant has had his or her Golden Visa for over 1 year, any children that are born in Portugal after that moment, they would actually get the passport on birth, even before the investor has got their passports, because they still have another 4 years to go to be able to get the passport. So that's a good benefit.
We have someone that asks, what's the current tax rate for the global income in Portugal at the end of the 10-year period?
It depends. It's a sliding scale. I believe it goes from 20 to 45% for the highest earners. Again, there's usually a lot of double tax treaties, so that income would usually only be taxed once, normally on the country at source. But we're not tax experts. But that's the best answer I can give. Yes.
And Sa has asked if you could possibly run through the Barraca de Prata Lisbon project. That might be something we want to do individually.
I'm not familiar with that project. I don't think there is one now. There used to be a residential one called that, but commercial ones in Lisbon, they're pretty much impossible to find right now. We're looking to find some ourselves because it's usually quite popular, but we sold out of ours about a month and a half ago, and there's just nothing.
Okay. Mahmoud has said, are there any age limits?
Well, you should be an adult to apply for the Golden Visa, but there are no age limits. You know, you can be 70 or 90 and you can still get it. There's age limits on the dependents, as stated earlier, that they have to be dependent, and you know, probably 27 is probably a cutoff for a dependent, and that's pushing it. There's a limit on, you can add parents onto the application. So over 65, you don't need to prove anything, any documentation, just that your parents via a birth certificate. Under 65 and over 55, you should also prove dependency. So we can include parents, but they should be dependent on the main applicant financially. Yes,
okay. And let's see if we have any more. Mahmoud has asked for a copy of the presentation, but obviously, Mahmoud, Mohammed, we can speak to you individually about any more details that you need with regards to that. Are there any more questions for us? Laurie, have an Italian passport with a South African partner. We hope to live in Portugal as an EU citizen. Will I still need to buy a property for her to gain Portuguese citizenship?
Right, so we have quite a few South Africans. We have 4 offices in South Africa, by the way, and South Africans are probably our second or third biggest nationality for applicants for the Golden Visa. So it is very popular to get it done. Portugal would be the only way for your partner to be able to get an EU passport without having to live in Portugal. There are other routes to do it, for example. So if they lived in Italy with you, or pretty much in any EU country, you live there for a number of years, you can also get the passport. In Italy, it's 10 years of continuous living in Italy to be able to get the passport.
Okay, thank you for that one. Sar has asked, how could we prove financial dependency of a parent over 55 years if they don't have a bank account?
Yeah, so it's tough to do if there's no bank account. Maybe you can prove they're living with you, so that would help. If they're medically dependent on you, that helps as well. So those would be the only other ways to do it besides sending money every month to a bank account in their name.
Yeah, okay. Shahid said, can I buy a property in the name of a holding company and not directly in my name?
It's possible to buy the property from a company that you own. Actually, it is possible to buy it, but it has to be in a company that you own at 100%, and it's not that straightforward, because basically the law dictates that the money comes from an account in the client's name in Portugal, and it has to come from a bank account in the client's name outside of Portugal. So there is a way to do it so that it is in the company's name, as in the money sent from the company, but the Golden Visa application can't be in a company's name. It has to be in a person's name. So there can only be one main applicant. So yeah, that's that.
All right. Mahak says, will distance learning degree course qualify as full-time education for his daughter, who's 22 years old now?
Yeah, it can be, particularly now since COVID. There's so many, or most courses now online. It's possible. The course should be at least 12 months long. We can advise on what type of course, and before the client enrolls, we confirm it with the lawyers. But we have done this in the past for other clients who were 26, to give you an idea. Okay.
Shahid said, is there tax on rental income? I think we've answered this question, actually, that you'll generate in the 5 years.
Yeah, I mean, in the case of the Royal Obidos property, the 131,000 euros is after withholding tax. In the case of the Algarve property, there would only be rental income on the income in year 6. So if the client, was to get 14,000 euro rental income in year 6, they would net 10,000 euro after rental income tax.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. All right, that sort of answers all of the questions. I think, oh no, we've got one more. Can we choose our own property on the property? Or should it be, I don't know, I think they're asking, can they choose their own property within the developments that are approved by the government?
Yeah, so the government doesn't approve any properties in Portugal. They just set the law and the qualifying criteria. So if the properties meet that criteria, then you know, they can buy it.
I have a feeling this question is more, can they choose the actual individual unit within the development?
Well, yes, that as well. They can choose the individual unit in the development, but choosing a property, it's very tough to find commercial properties that qualify in the good cities. It's pretty much impossible. There's very limited options at the moment. Okay, all right.
Let's just wait a second to see if there's any extra questions after that. We haven't got any more at the moment. If we don't have any more, obviously, just like to say thank you very much for attending. Hope you found it useful. Obviously, lots and lots of information. We will follow up with everybody individually. So if you've got a personal question that we don't want to answer live in front of everybody, we can obviously cover that in a phone call or a Zoom call. Just like to thank you, Pablo. That was very informative, lots and lots of information. So thank you for that. And we'll follow up with you all very shortly. Okay.
Pleasure. Thanks, Rob. Thank you, everyone, for attending. Have a good day.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.